Next week, the Denver City Council will add 5 new members, and they, along with the rest of the council, will discuss the expansion of Peña Boulevard. Approval of the $93.5 million project was postponed this week after transit advocates claimed adding additional lanes to the road would discourage travelers from utilizing the A train. Joey, my first thought of reading this story was, I don't think the public needs any help being discouraged from taking the A train. Video of it being stranded in the middle of nowhere is doing just fine. What do you think about this being put off to the whole, at least 5 new members of the council next week?
Well, this perfectly demonstrates the 2 Colorados that we live in. One Colorado is frustrated by being stuck in traffic jams. The other Colorado has this vision of the future of how we're going to get around without cars. And until those 2 worlds get on the same reality, we're all going nowhere. And we're going to see this happen. Governor Polis has no plan to fund more funding for transportation, but he does have a plan for commuter rail up and down the Front Range, except he doesn't have a plan to pay for it. I can tell you one of the ways that he's going to pay for it, besides rider fees, he's going to take the money out of asphalt. So this is a conversation that's not going to end with the Denver City Council, and we can all think about it sitting in traffic listening to the radio for the next 10 or 20 years.
You're here. Patty, it feels that DIA is slowly becoming this big topic that we're going to be talking around this table, just like we were in the early 90s, because there were various problems that were hard to get through, that needed a lot of funding, that didn't have any quick solution. Between Peña Boulevard and the terminal itself, are we sensing a growing quagmire down Peña Boulevard?
Well, the problem is not so much getting on Peña Boulevard, it's what you reach after you finally get off Peña Boulevard at the airport, and we're seeing the delays in that concourse are going to be significant. If you've tried to fly out of there, it's a mess. So you don't need a lot more people coming there because it's almost impossible to get on those trains between the terminal and the concourse. It's interesting that City Council postponed this specific vote when there were so many others they could have postponed for the new council members. Back in April, there was a move to postpone the Denver Right, the planning documents, until the new council came in. They refused to do that. Interestingly, they just postponed this one.
David, I've seen the efforts from the city where it's harder to drive places like Lodo and Lohi and things, I like still call it North Denver. And I get that, I'm against it, but fine, if that's the way it's going to be at the city. To make it harder for people to drive into one of the nation's busiest airports seems like lunacy to me, but I've been called crazy more than once. What do you think?
Well, there's a method to the madness. If you have 2 things that people could eat, say Spam or steak, then, and if you are a Spam advocate, then you try to get rid of all the steak. And then people, and so transit advocates, as so-called, that's really a euphemism for just authoritarian collectivists. As Joey's saying, they want to destroy the road system so they can force people to do something they would never want to do otherwise, which is ride inferior, low-quality, government-run, no choice transit. That's why the Colorado roads have been neglected for so long, and it's why they oppose making it possible for people to get to the airport in a convenient way.
Natasha, any roadblocks to this expansion being approved next week by the new council?
Well, at the risk of being too middle of the road, pun intended, I don't see why everyone can win here. I mean, everyone needs to get to the airport. How can we make that happen? And whatever mode of transportation they want to take to get there, let's do that. What's interesting, if you drill into what this is looking at a little bit more, it's not just about cars and it's not just about A-Line. It's also about rideshare, which, if you'll remember, wasn't a thing in the very short past. It was not even a thing. So we've seen not only DIA, but other airports across the country have to, and the world, have to deal with how do we address things like that. I have no doubt that what we're thinking about today and what the council will decide on Monday will change even more so in a year or two, because transportation is changing that quickly. So it'll be an interesting first topic for them.